Hey everyone, and welcome to the Media People Podcast. I'm your host, Victor Genova. I'm pretty excited because this is our inaugural Media People Podcast, the pilot episode, if you will, if anyone from TV land is listening in. The formula is simple. Each week we're going to sit down and chat with some of the best and brightest from the media industry and get a chance to hear their story, where they're from, where they are now, and what happened in between. Before we get started with our first guest, I wanted to give a shout out to Zarvan Kavari, one of the most talented graphic designers in Toronto. He designed the logo you see on our SoundCloud page, and that logo is only the tip of what he can do. Websites, digital portfolios, digital creative, etc. If you need someone for the aforementioned services, then please feel free to send him an email at zarvan.kavari@gmail.com. That's zarvan.khavari@gmail.com. Our very first guest is Hannah Savage, VP Head of Strategy at Havas Media in Toronto. Hannah's held senior positions at major media firms on both sides of the Atlantic and undertook some very intense charity work in South Africa before then. Okay, before we get into everything, go right back to the past and talk about where you were born and everything else, I wanted to ask you, you were just recently promoted to VP Head of Strategy.
Yes.
What was that moment like? Like, did someone come into your office and be like, you're a VP now? Was it something you were kind of jonesing for? Because a lot of people don't really see that moment understanding. How do you get to that next level?
Well, it kind of been on the cards for a couple of months, been talking about it with my CEO and CFO and all that sort of stuff. And they knew it was something that I was wanting to happen at some point. I wanted to take more of a strategic, managerial role in like guiding the company and where we wanted it to go. And thankfully, I think I got fairly lucky with people I was working with and everything else. And so the opportunity kind of came up. And so, yeah, it was great. Tom kind of took me out for lunch and sort of said, would you like to? And he didn't actually ask me if I wanted to be a VP. He just said, you are now VP. So I was like, okay, cool, great. Thank you.
So, looking at your resume, I grabbed your LinkedIn profile. You've been with Havas for a very long time and on 2 continents.
Yeah. I started out like 7 years ago or something, I think, with Havas back in London.
And you just kind of, because you've been you had I think it was something like 5 different positions with Havas between both countries. So you've really stuck with the country. That's something we don't see a lot of in this industry. Sorry, I hate to say that to anyone who's listening goes, no, I stuck around with my country. It's true, people do jump around a lot, but you've got a lot of great growth within the company.
I think it's something that, especially in London, is very, very sought after. It's just, if you always know that if someone's been promoted internally repeatedly, then they're hopefully worth something. And they're a good prospect for the future. And to be honest with you, I've kind of always liked Havas. It's been a fairly a lot has changed. We've gone through 1,000 brand names, but I think now we've finally settled on where the brand is and what we're doing as a company and everything under one roof and all that. But there's been enough challenges to keep me interested, and each of the jobs has been slightly different and had its own set of challenges to keep me interested. So it's been great. Okay,
but we mentioned 2 different continents. And so that accent of yours, it's English.
Yes.
But you weren't born in England.
No, I was actually born in Hong Kong.
Crazy. So that was clearly when it was still under British rule and everything, because that only stopped 15 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
You wouldn't be a VP at 15.
No. My dad was with the British Navy and then in a NATO posting, so we moved around probably sort of every year and a half to 2 years,
really?
My entire life, up until my parents sort of made the decision to put all of us 3 kids into boarding school when we were. Well, I think my brothers were as young as 6. I think I was about 11 because they moved to America. So yeah, it was amazing. Got to see loads of the world, but it means we're a bit of a international student.
So but how long were you then in Hong Kong for?
I was in Hong Kong for a huge amount of time, so only up until sort of I've got a couple of early memories before we came back to England.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
But then moved around a bit after that, so ended up in America, and then I went to live in South Africa randomly by myself for a while as well. And then, got fed up in London and moved to Canada.
Okay. What was life like for you in England growing up?
It was lovely. It's very quaint. Rains a lot. And yeah, I had an amazing family, so we moved around a hell of a lot, and that meant that I'm very, very close to my family. My brothers were my best friends and all that sort of stuff. I know that sounds incredibly cheesy.
No.
But
it's a good thing to have. Be proud of it. Okay, so I wanted to just hang on the fact that you were born in Hong Kong again. So now that it's moved over to Chinese rule and you were born there, are you a Chinese citizen, British citizen? Like, how does that work? It's kind of cool. Like, it seems like they might have handed you a second passport or citizenship certificate without even having to try or apply for it.
No, so what happens is when we handed it back, I mean, the English basically sort of like said, okay, 2000, here you go, back it goes. Anyone who was born there was given the opportunity to actually apply for citizenship within a certain period of time. So, yeah, able to do that, and that was great.
Gotcha. Talk about your time in boarding school when you were in England. Because a lot of people listening to this were probably thinking, was it anything like Harry Potter?
No, it really wasn't like Harry Potter. We went to a forces school, so there were 3 children, and my dad was with the Navy, and one of the perks of that was that they paid for 2/3 of our tuition fees, or else there was no way my parents would have been able to afford. It was like buy one, get 2 free,
gotcha.
Basically. So,
was that what they typically call grammar school?
It's a really, really difficult one. Do you know what? Even I'm not entirely sure the differentiation between private, public and grammar schools back in England, because it just seems to be... I'm sure someone can sort of like call in and tell us whether what's the actual correct pronunciation. But no, mine was a City of London Guild school. So we had a lot of forces kids, and then we had a lot of kids who were out of slightly less, I suppose, life-affirming situations in London, and they were taken away from given the option of actually going to this public school or private school rather than actually being taken away and put into care. So they got to stay with their families.
Is it safe to call you an army brat? Would you call yourself that?
Well, I'm a Brit brat. That's what they used. Yeah, that's what they used to call us.
What kind of influence did that have on you? Because you always seem like, through your family, you were always arm's length away from the military. Was it a pretty political family? Did your dad do a good job of keeping that kind of politics outside of it?
Well, my dad always used to joke that he knew where all the nuclear warheads were, but he was never allowed to tell us. So I don't know how much truth there is to that statement. No, I mean, it was a really laid-back family. I mean, my dad was away a hell of a lot. My mum was an absolute legend. I still don't know how she did it. She had 3 children under 5, and my dad was away at sea a lot, like up to sort of 6 months, 7 months, 8 month stretches without seeing him. So she was just an incredible woman. But I wouldn't say they were actually very, very laid back, and the military was not. It's kind of part of our lives, in the fact that there's a lot of, actually my brother's gone into it, so we're now 5th generation Navy, the Savages. But yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You never had any ambitions to jump into it yourself?
My dad desperately wanted, I think, all 3 of us to join the Navy. But it was kind of always the deal with my brothers and I that one of us would do it, kind of unspoken. And then when Alex said, he's the middle brother, when Alex said he was going to sort of do it, Ben and I just sort of breathed a sigh of relief and then went off and did our own thing. So it's great.
So I guess that would have been the time you were finishing high school then. It was kind of like, do I go to university, do I take a gap year, or do I go into the military? You chose not to go towards the military, so kind of what happened after that? Well,
it was funny you mentioned that. So originally I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was a typical 12-year-old girl who sort of loved anything that moved in terms of horses and dogs and all that sort of stuff. So I originally wanted to be a vet. And then, my mum just turned around to me and said, don't worry, darling. Look, we don't expect you to go to university like your brothers. And that was, of course, a red rag to a bull. And she didn't mean it like that. She just wanted me to be happy. But it meant that I then strove really, really hard to get to university and do what I wanted to do. Sadly, I wasn't clever enough to be a vet, so ended up going and trying saving the world. So I did so double kind of degree, so psychology and sociology, and then geography with environmental sciences.
Yeah, I noticed that on your LinkedIn profile. So, tell us a little bit about what you were doing globally with that.
Globally?
Like you said, you were off to save the world.
Oh, yeah. I had
like,
grand illusions of the 21-year-old who's just come out learning all about the problems of female empowerment in Africa. So I disappeared off by myself for a year. Well, actually, with the chap I was with at the time, a good friend of mine now. We went around Africa. He was into wine, so he went and did that, and I was into saving the world. So I went.
So you've got 2 people here. One's like, I'm going to explore the vineyards, and you're just like, no, we've got people to save here.
Absolutely. And so we came to Cape Town. That was like where we wanted to stay for a bit.
What was South Africa like? Because that's a pretty, if you read about them in the news, they're a pretty polarizing nation. How long ago were you there?
Goodness me, I was back there, I was 21, so 11 years ago, 12
years ago. So
yeah.
They were still just, I kind of want to say, maybe about 15 years removed from apartheid. So what was it like being there at that time where they were trying to grow up in progression? I want to say Nelson Mandela was probably on his 2nd or maybe 3rd term as president.
It was... It was weird because everyone, I think, including my parents, were really scared about us going off and doing this sort of little adventure of ours. But I never had a single problem out there. Like, everyone was so welcoming and so sweet, and sort of, inviting us into their homes and everything else. We never had any problems. I mean, I think that it gets a bad rap for being unsafe and, a scary destination. And yet, as long as you're not an idiot, don't go walking around drunk at 3 a.m. in the morning, as long as you watch your back, you're absolutely great. And, there was still a certain level of racism, most certainly, going on. There was very much the white clique and then, the black clique. And then I had to learn as well, like, what you call people, because out there, if you call people, black, then that's correct. Or you call them brown, that's correct. Or coloured is correct. Whereas over here, of course, you've got a whole different set of rules.
We don't touch those terms.
Exactly. They're terrifying terms to everyone in modern day. But over there, it's just, you have white skin, you have brown skin, you have black skin. That was it. But no, there was still a massive Boer influence. And so if you ever met one of them, they were interesting characters. They still had very white rights, I suppose, is the way you put it. They felt that they were owed something.
If we can call it your mission, was most of that rooted within South Africa, or did you get out of the country and go through the rest of the continent as well?
No, well, I mean, we travelled around all the way around South Africa, so Swaziland and Lesotho, and then up to Mozambique briefly and all that sort of stuff. But I was based in Cape Town, actually doing the work with a company called Onsplek, which is a fantastic independent charity, which Onsplek directly translates as Our Place in Afrikaans. And it was the only self-admitting charity in the whole of Cape Town available for girls coming out of the sex trade. So people who were actually, coming out of that. And terrifyingly enough, I mean, it was children as young as 6.
Jeez, you were dealing with a lot of really heavy cases then.
Yeah, it was kind of that's I think why it's probably my only attempt.
There's no way media can frighten you then. You've seen that. Like...
No, I always joke about the fact, and this is probably not going to come across well, but I tried to save the world and I gave up and came and sold my soul to the devil. But not in a bad way. It's just that I really enjoy my job now, but it doesn't. Whilst it's stressful and it's challenging, it's not as emotionally draining as that experience was. Although it was hugely life-affirming, and I don't regret a second of it.
So what made you then, leave what you were doing there in South Africa?
I wasn't up to it. I got too emotionally attached to a lot of the children and all that sort of stuff. And when we got to the stage where they were having to make choices based on how the funding that we had as to who actually got HIV treatment.
Oh, jeez. I wasn't. Gut-wrenching.
Yeah, I wasn't up for it. I wasn't strong enough. I was a 21-year-old kid. I'd like to think that if I went back now, that I'd have a bit more of a stomach for it, but. Back then, it wasn't something that I could really cope with. And then I ran out of money. That's the other thing. So, that's...
So after that was done, you came back to the UK?
Yes. Yeah, I came back to the UK for a bit, and then I moved to London. And then that was when I kind of got into sort of my first... Well, it wasn't really a marketing job. I was working... I saved money to go to Africa, working for the VP of American Express down in Brighton, where my university was.
Gotcha, okay.
And when I came back, I got offered an executive assistant job working for the VP of Marketing for American Express up in London. So I kind of packed my bags and moved up there one day. I think they offered me the job on a Friday, and I started the next Monday. So I had weekend to find a house and everything else. And then did that, and then they were really, really nice guys, but I stayed with them for I think 2 years, and then I actually went over to work for their agency, and that was my first proper media job.
So what brought you then into media then?
So my boss was fantastic. I had a couple of bosses actually. I was working for like 3 guys at the time, and they were just all really passionate about it, and I think that they realised that I potentially had more to offer in other areas rather than just organising their lives. And so they put me in touch with their agency, which was TBG London, which is a full service like creative digital agency and everything else. And I interviewed with them, and I kind of sidestepped to actually then look after the American Express account for them. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It came quite naturally to me, especially when you get organised, because working for a VP, you tend to have to know everything.
Yeah.
So you learn on the job. So then you're kind of in a good position.
So what were some of your first clients then that you were working with?
Well, so American Express was my very, very first client when I first went over. And then after that, I had, oh goodness me, it's so long ago. At TBG... Goodness, I can't even go back that far. That's crazy. I had that easy car and stuff like that.
When you had, when you started it though, I mean, were you doing digital? Were you doing everything? Like, what were you planning on? Because I know over there, newspapers, even though they're losing money, it's not like over here they really reign supreme.
Oh no, so we were just a digital agency.
Okay.
So we were doing full service digital. So they had a really interesting model whereby they were the first guys to come to market and be like, we're going to offer a CPA model to our clients. And so we set the CPA, and then if we drove underneath that, we just pocketed the difference. It was great. So it worked for a small amount of time, and then, obviously that model changed. But because of that, we had full rights for, optimizing the creative, building the templates, booking the media, reporting, the whole lot. So it was really hardworking. It was incredibly detail orientated, and I learned so much. My mentor there, a guy called David Gilbert, was probably one of the biggest reasons I got so passionate about it. He was a fantastic bloke. He's still in the industry back in London.
And so after that, then you moved to Havas.
Yeah. After that, it was a swift jump onto. I ended up working at Havas International. It was a good job, but it wasn't a passion. I then got offered the BBC account on the over on the Havas sort of UK side. So I went over to work on that, and then worked with some fantastic people, and then ended up with the BBC, Penguin Books, East Coast Rail, and they were like my babies. They were brilliant. Some of the best years.
Okay, so then I guess that took you through then your tenure in London, and what brought you to Canada? Don't say the weather. It's -10 outside.
No, I just spent 9 years in London, and going back to the fact that I'm a military, moved around a hell of a lot when I was younger. I just had a classic case of itchy feet. I just wanted to try something different. So I went to my CEO at the time and said, "Look, I love Havas, but I need a change. I'm going mad. Is there anywhere that you think might suit me?" And he did some scouting around, and there was a post in New York and there was a post in Toronto, and I decided to take this one. I thought that would be more fun.
Had you ever been in Toronto before?
I came when I was 11 years old to visit my uncle, and went to a Blue Jays game, and remember eating the biggest hot dog of my life. That was my entire memory of Canada. But yeah.
The team was probably winning back then, too.
Probably.
Nice. Okay, so you picked Toronto. That's actually pretty good of us, that they were all for, you know what, we want to keep you. Where do you want to go in the world? A lot of companies won't do that. It's kind of like, no, go back to your desk, or here's the door. Yeah,
absolutely. No, they're actually getting even more involved in it as now. Now they've got like village placements. I think they're called Village.
Is it kind of
part of the village?
Is it kind of like doing an exchange where they're like, we'll send you to...
Yeah.
You're there for 6 months, then you come back.
Exactly.
And that's
so now they're doing that across the whole of North America, Europe, and Asia as well. So you can do a 6-month placement. So I know a couple of people in London who've already gone and done, 6 months in New York or Chicago or stuff like that, and they're opening it up. Should be coming to Canada fairly soon. So yeah, it's a really good option.
So let's talk a bit about the differences, not just between Havas, Toronto, and Havas back in London, but Toronto and London. When you got here, what did you think?
Well, I made the stupid mistake of coming here on the 10th of January.
No.
So I was straight into that epic winter of 2013 as well.
And it's only getting colder after that.
Oh my God.
So it's not
So I don't think I'd ever experienced anything like it. The whole nostril hair freezing thing. Oh my God, that was just horrendous.
Which is followed up by a runny nose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which you can't feel.
So sexy.
Yeah, that's the way we roll here.
But no, I loved it. After my first summer, I kind of fell in love. I think this place is incredible. And Canadians are just such fun people. Really, really have enjoyed my time here.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm like, I love Toronto, but I'm always trying to get back to London. I love that
really?
city. Maybe it's because you can go anywhere on the subway.
Yeah.
You find one subway station that's got 4 lines going through it, and here we can't get one stop built. But that's another story altogether.
But at the same time, like the major difference between like Toronto and London is just like, so going on the underground and the subway and that sort of thing. As a woman, if you're lugging around like a small child in a pushchair, in London, no one will offer to help you carry that child up the stairs. In Canada, you'll have 5 men fighting each other to help you like carry that child in the buggy up the stairs. It's astonishing. Like it's a totally different thing. Not that I had kids, but I've seen it enough.
Yeah, a couple months ago I tried to offer my seat to a woman who was pregnant on the subway. I did. She took it. Turned out not to be pregnant.
Oh my God.
It was a disaster.
So mortifying.
I've got this rule on the subway now that if I get a seat, I put my face down in my book. If someone needs the seat, gladly give it up. You got to poke me and say, I'm not doing that again. Because then you're stuck with them for like 7 more stops. And they're giving you the evil eye. And you're like, why are you? Oh, God. It took 2 stops to realize why she was just giving me that dirty look.
Oh, that's not good.
No, but let's jump back to it. The differences between not just Havas Toronto and Havas London, but like, I guess the planning media, working with clients.
Yeah.
Like, how different is that?
Well, I think it's a hell of a lot more challenging, and I don't think that Canadian agencies get enough kudos for it, to be honest with you, because in London you get the big budgets and all that sort of stuff, and you're kind of a priority market. Whereas, as a lot of the time, you know, in Canada, the agencies are servicing a hell of a lot of global clients where, you know, the budgets aren't as big, but the clients are just as demanding. And, you know, whilst you're, you know, working your butt off to try and sort of bring in new clients and give them the love they deserve, you know, you turn around and one of your biggest clients who's been happy for 5 years has had a global consolidation, and so their business walks out the door through no fault of your own. So I think that it's a unique challenge for agencies just to manage sort of like the flow of clients through their agency, and also, you know, hold on to them as well. It's just, it's been exhausting for me. I haven't managed to get my head around it really. But
when it comes to global clients like that, Havas would be working with like globally. Do you guys jump in much with your counterparts in New York City, London, whatever, or do they kind of keep it pretty segregated? We're like, you're Canada, do your own thing. You don't need to talk to New York or London or anything like that.
No, do you know what? It's totally different for every single client set. Like, I mean, I've just spent the last 2 days down in New York, doing completely integrated planning with the American team on Emirates. So
nice.
It's just, you know, some clients we're incredibly integrated with. Other international accounts, you know, they have a global like agreement, but we work with the local clients on a local scale. So it just kind of depends, to be honest with you, on the setup. But
I wanted to ask you though about prospecting new clients. I'm a sales rep, and it's easy for me to do it because even if it does get awkward on the other end when you're making that cold call, people with budgets anticipate people like me are calling because they're like, yeah, he wants advertising money, we get it. But on your end, it's a little bit different because you're going into the client and you're actually trying to push another agency out the door. Like, how do you start, apart from them putting out an open RFP saying come in and bid on our business, how else do you approach that?
Do you know what? I'm probably the worst person for you to ask that to, because I think it's a hell of a lot
about an answer.
No, it's about who you know. I mean, I've really struggled with it in the last couple of years because, you know, I haven't been in the industry over here that long and I don't know that many people. And, you know, I do find that the people who seem to get ahead of the game are the ones that have been in the industry for a very long time and kind of know everyone, because it's a really small world. You know, all of the clients probably, well, you know, not all of them, but a lot of the clients, especially for the big, you know, budgets, are ex-agency people, so they've worked with people in the past. So, you know, if they're an ex-cassette guy, then, you know, they're gonna speak to the ex-cassette people they used to work with and give them the heads up. So it's kind of all about who you know, but other than that, it's just, I think, about trying to create work that you're proud of. If you can do that and you've got a great portfolio and you can start getting noticed, then people start to put you on their list.
Is there one thing that you've done in the industry that you kind of wear like a badge of honor, like one campaign or something like that?
Yeah, my baby. So East Coast Rail, it was the first like dynamic campaign that linked up bidding strategies on programmatic platforms, dynamic creative, along with the client's API that fed in dynamic pricing as well. So it won, like, it's just been the campaign that just kept on giving from an awards standpoint, and the client has just, they've been absolutely delighted. So
Are awards a big deal for you? Because I find with some people I speak to in the industry, they're just kind of like, no, results with a client, but then there are other people who are kind of like, Con is my Oscars. I want to be there on stage. I want a press release with my name.
I don't think it's so much about being on stage or being at the awards. I think it's recognition of good work. I got really excited that, you know, I finished that campaign and then moved to Canada. So I've just been getting emails through going, oh, we got another one. Oh, and it got another one. I'm like, damn it, why did I move?
It's kind of like winning the Oscar for Best Actress and then saying, I quit, I'm retiring. No.
Yeah, it's no. I don't think. I think it's a great skill to write a brilliant award entry, but I think that there's a huge amount in that in whether you win or not. But I think ultimately, I kind of sit on the fence with saying it's about the results that it does to the client, but it's about that piece of work that you are proud of it because it delivered something for people that you work for, that they were happy, you were happy, and that you feel you did something a little bit exceptional.
Awesome. Tell you what, we're running out of time here, so I want to ask you one last question. If you had to leave media for something else and you had anything in the world in front of you, it was your oyster, what would you be doing at this point? You can't go back to saving children. You've already done that. It's got to be something new. Although children deserve to be saved. And I get why you're doing that.
Well, if I don't have any problems with, and we can pretend that I'm more intelligent than I am, then I think I'd go and be a vet. That sounds like pretty cool.
You jump back in with animals?
Yeah, sorry.
So now we're not saving children, we're saving animals.
Saving animals instead, yeah.
This is perfect. Hannah, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Everyone listening, if you picked this up through social media, go to SoundCloud. It's soundcloud.com/MediaPeoplePodcast and follow us. And hopefully we can get this thing off the ground and do more and more episodes with different people. Hannah, thanks again for your time.
Brilliant. Thank you.